This chair is affordable. Well, at least that's what the vision was at first. Most people who know the name Eames tend to associate it with modern luxury furniture, and the chair most people think of is the Eames lounge chair and ottoman. And if you don't know the name, then you probably recognize this chair from a TikTok video. Yeah, this one. And it costs around $7,395. But why is it so expensive? And how did this simple chair contribute to Herman Miller's significant influence on shaping today's modern furniture? Well, to answer your question, we need to go back to 1946, 10 years before its release, and a year after the end of World War II. By now, American manufacturers had retooled and were already fluent in the new design language. From Grand Rapids to Southern California, furniture called modern started pouring out of the factories, but it could hardly be produced fast enough to satisfy demand. And once the eager customers got to the store, they were wholly patriotic. The position European furniture had held before the war had fallen completely flat. In a victorious post-war frame of mind, kowtowing to European culture was replaced with a fierce nationalism, a feeling that if America could win the war, surely it must have something to offer in the field of furniture design. Well, it did have a lot, in fact, and it all started with one small manufacturer in Zeeland, Michigan, who dared to believe in existence of discriminating clientele and made no attempt whatsoever to pander to the so-called norms of public taste. Its goal, stated in its 1952 catalog, was a permanent collection of furniture designed to meet fully the requirements for modern living, not one to be scrapped for each furniture market or for each new trend as announced by the style experts. And with the help of the unstoppable duo of the century, together they would become one of the great success stories of the post-war era. But how could a design from the 50s that was modeled after a first baseman's mitt make us obsessed about buying it and become a timeless piece? Well, according to the design process of Charles Eames, it says, if this area is the interest of the designer, and this is the interest of the client, and this the concerns of society as a whole, then it's in this area of overlapping interest and concern that the designer can work with emotion and enthusiasm. But that's only a part of the equation. Adding constraints is what makes a design complete, and that constraint was polywood. Charles once said the problem with plastic is that you can do anything with it. If you have to design a chair out of a rock, you are stuck with the rock, if you're going to be using the material in an honest way. And although you might think that by using plywood he was trying to cut down on the costs, it's far from the truth. In fact, he was afraid that Herman Miller wouldn't recoup the expenses incurred from tooling. And to top it off, Charles took 2 whole years to come up with the design. They had to make 13 different versions of the arm alone for the final chair, because at the end, they were chasing what you might say the idea of comfortability in Charles and Ray's mind. So the design was only complete after Julian Blaustein fell asleep on the test chair that Charles finally got his answer. It was ready to be manufactured in 1956. But that did not mean the process was over. Charles had an obsession. Even when the piece of furniture was manufactured for the first time, Charles was never really finished with it. He would always go back and look at it. And this was especially true for the lounge chair design. After Park Meek fabricated the first 50 for the Herman Miller showrooms by hand, with the help of specific mechanical tools to produce the U-shape with plywood, they sold instantly, and as the chair became successful, the design process continued to engage the constraints of mass production. And the issue with that is that big companies with bigger budgets started producing copycats, and at that time, Herman Miller was still just a small company. And this is where marketing and the name Eames comes in place. Herman Miller had achieved a bit of a coup. The chair would be unveiled on national television on the highly rated home show hosted by Arlene Francis. In about a week from going on live television, Charles and Ray decided that what was needed was a little film about the chair and how it was made. They made a 2-minute film of Dick Hoffman, who worked in the back of 901 for Herman Miller, assembling a lounge chair from scratch in sped-up motion to show how the chair was put together and packed. Within a few days, the film Eames Lounge Chair was completed and aired. And by letting only 2 companies to produce these chairs with the Eames name attached, Herman Miller in the US and Vitra for the European market, the chair held value like no other. But that didn't stop competitors. In 1962, the Eameses took out full-page newspaper advertisements warning consumers about counterfeits. And this decision took an unexpected turn, but in a way you might not imagine. Most people who buy the Eames lounge chair right now is for personal satisfaction. It has become a sort of status symbol, and that's especially true for some demographic. Its humble beginnings might have started as a comfortable chair to sit on, but after its featuring in different elite magazines, its value changed. Don't get me wrong, the chair has always been expensive since its release. To put it simply, if we were to consider the price of the item in today's currency, it would be $4,394.22 for just the chair. However, if we include the ottoman as well, the total cost would be $6,071.22. But part of that broadening recognition goes to what people think of it. It was portrayed as the pinnacle of achievement for men, a piece that says, "I made it." It's always portrayed that way. And because of the pandemic, which sparked a wave of home makeovers documented on social media, this made the revered chair feel oddly trendy.